Alrighty. So today is July 8th. A lot has happened since we last talked. That seems to be the case literally every week. There's always something. Um, I think we talked about before, like just having a little bit of news fatigue. And I feel like I get that, and then I get like sucked right back in because then there's something like super interesting that I'm like, okay, what's going on here. Couple topics that we should be talking about today. Wanted to start off with a very interesting one that seems to have MAGA divided, which is the Epstein files. Apparently, Pam Bondi released that there is no client list, that the FBI, Cash Patel, Dan Bongino determined that it was in fact suicide rather than him getting murdered. Yeah, and now MAGA seems a little torn about that because now it seems like it's a cover up. Now, why they would not acknowledge why there's a cover up, that's to be seen. I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, Donald Trump just had to protect some of his friends, and his donors, which is why he didn't release the Epstein files, which seems very odd to me because somehow Donald Trump and Epstein have been photographed tens, if not 20s of times. We've seen him in a private plane with him. We've seen him on the flight log three different times, and somehow people don't associate that that Donald Trump could be complicit with all of this too. Um,
Yeah.
want to hear your thoughts though. What do you think that MAGA is finally going to start turning on him because of this, or do you think that they'll continue to make excuses to uh, free dear leader of any accountability?
Yeah. I mean, it is comical that I mean, if I was even ever photographed Jeffrey Epstein, right? And I happened to also have maybe I don't know what is it like 30 something women or more who have accused me of like sexual issue like harassment, rape, assault, all these different things. Um And I also have a whole tape where it says when I'm a star that they just let you do it, just grab them by whatever, like
Yeah.
it's it's interesting because if it was any other politician, people would be like, okay, like we could have assumed innocence, but that's a real coincidence that you're just friends with him, supposedly best friends of 10 years, according to Jeffrey Epstein in a recording. That, I mean, a long list of things, but I do find it interesting that people across the political spectrum, in some ways, try to find some other argument, right? Like, I've seen people saying that it's because of Israel, it's because of donors, it's because of all these different things. Like, it's always some conspiracy theory and not just maybe it's Donald Trump. Like, maybe they have to protect the leader.
Right.
And I would I don't think there's an official client list. I think that would be stupid. But I think you know who the clients were because you like they've already upped it to like I was thinking we were thinking like around 200 or more victims. They said over 1,000 victims,
Yeah.
and there's no evidence of who any of the people are. I mean, you were sitting here the whole time, and like they used it as a political talking point the entire campaign and into now, right? Like the first couple months of this administration, they like gave out the Epstein files to, these MAGA influencers and they were going around like cheering because they
Phase
got this.
one rollout.
Yeah, exactly. And what phase are we at? No, now there's no phase. It's over. There was nothing.
Yeah.
Basically, almost like they said, like, we can't charge him with anything. He's dead. Like it, and I would be less skeptical and I would say, oh, okay, it's maybe a conspiracy theory. But they were the ones who ran with this, right? That we're gonna release the list. We're gonna release the list. It was Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, like all these figures in MAGA world who are sitting there using it when it's a political talking point, and then they get into power and they do. exactly what they, I guess everybody assumes Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and whatever these Democratic figures are doing because, they accuse Democrats of trying to protect their own or whatever these different things are. But, you know, it why do you not go for the people who are in office? Like even with the when he killed himself, right? Everybody was talking about Hillary Clinton. And I'm like, wasn't Trump president? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he is the president at that moment, but you assume it's some person you hate versus Trump has just as much reason to especially if there's any incriminating evidence that Epstein and people had on him. Um, that's all, who knows? But there's something there for sure, some sort of cover up for somebody.
Yeah.
I don't, it's, I think it's probably most likely with Donald Trump. Do you think he's going to cover up for anybody else? Like, no, he would throw you under the bus.
Right.
Like, come on, like, let's be realistic. There's only one person who Donald Trump would want to protect like that,
Yeah.
himself.
Exactly. And what was funny was actually after the Israel had attacked Iran and Donald Trump said like he was still in support of Israel. I saw a lot of MAGA people saying, "Oh yeah, they Israel has like tapes of Donald Trump with little kids. That's the only thing that makes sense on why he keeps supporting
Yeah.
Israel." And I'm like, listen, I'm not here for the conspiracy theories, but if you guys are going to start putting it on yourselves, hey, I'm willing to listen at this point because like it's just I've heard so many stupid conspiracy theories.
But those I think are clearly, I understand why it feels like Israel has something over us, but what it has is regional power.
Yeah,
Like it's one of the dominant regions, and like why would we not, like in some ways, like you can have a moral conversation, but we don't live in a moral world 9 times out of 10. And it's not America and Israel's relationship, it's everybody and everybody's relationship.
right.
But I think to sit there and say that, if we're being honest, Israel is just a cover for the Jews have Donald Trump in a stranglehold. And it's like, no, like, there's some sort of alliance deeply, which I think they're just similar figures between Trump and Netanyahu. I mean,
Yeah,
you're completely defending him, saying, how dare Israel try to prosecute him? Like
right.
basically saying that it's a witch hunt against him too. Uh, he sees victims of, so many people. And I think in a lot of ways, like with the files, like uh, people never assume it's him. Like it's just always some other theory. And that doesn't even just refer to the files. It's everything Donald Trump does, he can't be responsible for.
Yeah,
It's always some excuse for whatever the issue is. Like it's somebody else, it's the Democrats, it's other Republicans, it's this institution. I mean, in one moment, he'll throw you under the bus. So,
right.
you know, we'll see what comes out about that, but they'll probably never mention it again at this point. Like,
Yeah, I think the Epstein files thing, I think that was their final straw of saying like, hey, we're done. This is it. There's nothing more. Which, listen, at the end of the day, like, I think if that was one of the big reasons why you voted for Donald Trump and he didn't fulfill it, I really hope that I know you're never going to vote for a Democrat in the first place, but I really hope that you just sit at home and don't vote at all because at this point you're just wasting time. Um, to segue into those voters, though,
but you could always join a new political party.
political party, that's interesting. I was hearing something on Twitter. I'm blanking on the guy's name. I think he's trying to start a third party. I think his name was something like Elon Musk. Um, so the American Party is apparently taking place now. We'll see how that goes. What are your thoughts? Do you think that this takes away votes from Republicans? Do you think that this is Elon's like ploy? Is that because he was betrayed by Donald Trump, that his intention is to start taking away votes from Republicans and therefore giving Democrats wins, but he can't do it directly because nobody would ever support him in any capacity in that way?
That's being a little too generous for him. I do think he thinks he has like just so much more power. Um, which I mean,
Do
he does have money to put into that venture,
do you
but
think that he's actually, do you think that he thinks that he's actually powerful enough to create a legitimate new party? Or because like in my mind, this all seems like an intentional way of saying like, okay, I'm done with the Republicans. I can't really go directly back to Democrats because at the end of the day, like they're not going to accept me with everything that I did, including handing the election to Donald Trump. So instead, what I'll do is create another party, take away some of the votes. That way, I can still have Republican support in some capacity, but make sure that Donald Trump is harmed in the process.
I mean, no, I definitely think it's definitely an attack against Republicans for sure. But Elon is one of the people who kind of echoes this whole "they're both the same." It's a uni-party type concept, which is just not accurate, really. Like,
Yeah.
there's elements where, yes, sometimes the issues, and oftentimes some of the worst issues, there's Democrats and Republicans who are like, yeah, we like agree about that. Like, it's not often the good policies, but I do think that, there is some calculus against Republicans and kind of him being, I think, ostracized by them and kind of pushed aside. But also, I think really just his kind of hatred of the bill, that the big beautiful bill, like it's not just about the subsidies and things like that. I think it's Elon's one of these people who like if America doesn't resolve their debt issues, it's the collapse of the world type deal, I think.
Yeah.
Where his argument was not that, we shouldn't kick people off of Medicaid, Medicare, we shouldn't kick people off of all these programs. It's like, no, you should like, why aren't you kicking off more people? Why is there like debt? Like, why are we increasing the debt, right? But, interested in what actual values the America Party stands for. Like, what is there? You know,
Yeah, I now that you're saying it, I haven't actually heard any policy positions other than cutting the deficit. Like that's and
yeah.
I feel like that right there is a policy position, but like how would you do it? Like Democrats have come up with ways of trying to help cut the deficit. Republicans have come up with ways of trying to cut the deficit. Like what is his plan on cutting the deficit? Is it doing exactly what you said, like cutting millions off of Medicare, Medicaid, or is it cutting Social Security in some capacity? Like, I mean, I haven't seen anything about it, but go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, I think that that's kind of the whole point. Like, also, I mean, one, i- if this is a creation of Elon, does it just have all of his values? Like, what is he going to look for in an America Party candidate? Like, it's so blatantly just boring patriot, like almost like this patriotic, well, we're the America Party. Okay, what does that mean for America? Like, can you explain what your policies are? And it's like if it's a regurgitation of like his views and his beliefs, I think I don't really know what you get because it's like, is he going to be, in some ways he agrees with Democrats on certain issues. He wouldn't tell you that to his face, but like this was somebody who talked about climate change. This is somebody who like was a Democratic donor in some ways, and kind of like Obama
Yeah.
was a big component of like his success. So I think maybe there's some potential on some of the solar energy, like his actual business ventures, but at the same time, you know he was sitting there talking and endorsing the AfD in Germany, which is a far right party.
Yeah.
It like extremely far right. Like, is that what the American Party is going to be?
Yeah.
Because his argument is that this party's for the average normal American, like middle of the road centrist type argument. But it's like you know you the AFD is not a centrist party. Like, where does there's no logic to it.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's most likely just really more of, I think, attention seeking, and Elon wants to run for president, but he can't.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. And like he's been basically telling you this the whole time. But I'm interested in to see. whether it's more effective in 2026 or 2028, or whether it even exists in 2026 or 2028. Like I could see this being a month or two, and then, Elon's not doing himself any favors with his businesses. Tesla needs him to look and focus on Tesla because let's be honest, they're not doing anything that crazy anymore. Like they're not really pushing the bar. And in some ways it's like, so much of what makes Elon Elon is his businesses and his companies. And I begin to wonder if your focus on politics affects your businesses to the point where, people don't want you as Tesla's CEO, right?
Yeah.
The board is like, you know what, this is too much. And in a lot of ways, the board has been begging him to just stop with the politics, no more politics, right? But Elon just can't. He can't get off of it. Which I was going to make a joke there, but I feel like it's a little inappropriate. But
No, make it.
well, I was just going to say he can't get off it, like ketamine. But my, I'm excited to see what happens because, Trump even like responded to it, saying, "Oh, he's just mad about these EV mandates." I think it's more personal. I think it's long-term personal.
Yeah.
And, Elon has money to just pour into it because, his threat scared a lot of Republicans about primaries, and like if he's willing to put the money there, who knows if it might take some votes from Republicans because there he does seem to have some loyal following in that Republican Party, and like they praise him like he's for what he did for Doge, he saved the country or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, talk about.
It's actually kind of interesting because like I think you're right. Like I don't know if this is going to be like a something that only lasts like a month or two if, there's somehow, some way, some kind of reconciliation between those two, which I've seen is so far-fetched. I agree. I agree. Listen, I agree. I'm just saying let's not rule it out because like after he made the comments about Epstein, a week ago saying Donald Trump was on the Epstein list, he suddenly like deleted the post and then started giving Donald Trump credit. But now all of a sudden he's posting these memes on Twitter, talking about how, we were going to get the Epstein list. And in fact, you know, they're not releasing the Epstein list. So, and like just giving MAGA crap about that. So, like, I don't know. Regardless, I wonder, like, I am kind of curious because, like, Elon Musk does tend to, like, really try to stick with things for as long as possible. And if the American Party does have some kind of traction, which it very well could easily get traction, because, like, there are a bunch of people that are going to want to be politicians and want to be able to compete. And Elon Musk going and promising and throwing as much money as humanly possible on them is just going to be like one of those things where it's just like, okay, well, why would you not run if you were guaranteed like $1 million from an Elon Musk pack, right? You're already basically going to be out raising most of your candidate and most of the candidates anyway. And if you do that in a competitive district too, you put that in a district where you get like they have like a 48-52 kind of split or a 47-53 kind of split, and then all of a sudden you're putting a crap ton of money on an American First person, and originally Republican had 53% of the vote, and now all of a sudden that 53 4%, 4 or 5% is now taken away from them. Like you're kind of swaying who's getting in office at that point. So I don't know. I am kind of curious to see if Musk does stick with it. And you're right, like his business ventures, he's been promising self-driving cars for years now. Waymo is so much further ahead than Tesla is, and like I mean, Waymo already has like active. They just announced that they are expanding to Philly. They've already had like active cars in San Francisco. I think that we're going to start seeing more and more releases of Waymo in different big cities, and then so I mean just in competition with Tesla. Tesla is so far behind because, like, from my understanding, I don't know if Tesla has any fully automated self-driving cars anywhere in any city. Like they
Yeah,
have
I mean, so
like
they do live in
capabilities.
Austin. It's not completely, it's not completely self-automated in the same way that the Waymos have been, and also it's not, um, there's been some more issues with it, which is to be expected when they first start rolling these things out.
Right.
But I think the focus on the robots and the autonomous business, it's like, okay, but it doesn't look like that's your like direct shot for, the future of Tesla, right?
Yeah.
And I also think that you're not making the sales in the cars that you need to be successful, really. And I think there is more reason for Chinese EV companies to open in America now that the tariffs are gone over the tariffs being there. Because now everybody's going to have to deal with the tariffs in some way if you have any business outside in other countries and things like that. Like you're going to be affected one way or the other.
Yeah.
So in some way, China has the backing of their state government or from the Chinese government. And it's not that they're going to approve every single thing that these companies say or do, but there's going to be more competition overall in the American market in every market that Tesla's in. Um, and I think we're in industry wide, politics wide, we're in just such a time for so much changeover from like the kind of the way in which I think we lived in the past
Hmm.
and to how we're going to the future that it's like these two things are kind of influencing each other. And I do wonder if, the America Party gets like fronted as some like futuristic party, right? How are you going to brand it?
Right.
Um, but, branding is one thing, votes are another, it's
Yeah.
completely different. So,
And I do want to, I do kind of want to, I promise you this will take like 2 minutes, because I definitely want to focus on the immigration thing. But
yeah.
um, Donald Trump is the biggest pansy I have ever seen. 90 deals in 90 days is what he said at the beginning of Liberation Day on April 9th, April 10th, whenever it was. He said 90 deals in 90 days. He has not only announced two deals, one of which was with a country that we've had a surplus with, but he's also now pushing back the deadline for tariff deals to August 2nd rather than the August, what, 9th when it was supposed to be, aka yesterday. I cannot stand anybody that is making any excuses because not only did he threaten all of these countries like before and it not work, now he's posting on Truth Social the letters that he's sending to these countries. Like at this point, it's just all show. He's trying to show that he's doing it, and nobody denies that he's trying to make deals on the back end. It's just that we know that those other countries aren't listening. It's just as easy as that. Anyways, like I said, I needed to go on my little spiel for that really quickly. All right. So it seems as though um, even though Donald Trump said that the immigration restrictions were going to become a little lighter, because I don't know if you saw this, but on Truth Social, like a week or two ago, he said that they were going to try to, I guess, not focus so heavily on individuals who are actually working and contributing to society, or sorry, illegal immigrants that were trying to contribute to society, because it's that a lot of the people in rural areas were starting to see impacts in their businesses. So you saw him saying like we're gonna start kind of reeling the immigration the ICE raids, we're gonna start reeling that back a little bit. But then all of a sudden you get a video of children playing in a park and then being chased down by ICE. I mean, listen, like as much as I hate how they were targeting individuals who were working and being part of like a productive society, if I had to choose between children playing in a park and like grown adults working, I don't know. I personally rather you focus your resources on people that are working rather than traumatizing like 10-year-old children. But what, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Like where do you where do you think Trump's mind is? Do you think that he's gonna, I mean, I want to say, like, do you think that he's gonna start to backpedal a little bit more on this whole immigration thing? Or, I mean, they part of the big beautiful bill was an increase in funding for immigration, or for ICE in particular. What
Massive
are your thoughts?
increase. Um, I mean, I don't think he necessarily directly knew what was happening at this park. I think for one, they didn't even really detain anybody. The whole goal was to let people know that they're there,
Yeah,
to intimidate, I guess, brown people, if we're being honest. Like, who in that park can you guarantee was not an American citizen or, living here legally?
right.
You can't. But you don't care. You want a show of force in these neighborhoods. And, I think as the mayor was saying, it's an assault, a continuous assault on California in a lot of ways, but specifically LA. And it's to show that we're here, we're there. And I think ICE is evolving in some ways with the budget that they gave them to be, a force who basically locks up dissidents or people who, are we going to see Elon Musk get, deported by ICE? You know what I'm saying? Like, and
That happens.
that's insane. But at the same time, we're talking about it. There's a joke about it. And I think the thing is that at the end of the day, we can lie and say that, this is normal or, whatever. It wouldn't be. Like, you shouldn't be sending the troops in any neighborhood in any country, or not country, excuse me, anywhere in the country,
Yeah,
because I just think that's ridiculous to militarize our streets. But they don't care if it's LA. Notice how it's not Texas or Florida.
yeah,
I always say those things because there's just as many illegal immigrants and undocumented people in Florida and Texas and places like that.
yeah,
But you don't see that the focus on that because one, it's political intimidation, and two, let's be honest, in Texas and Florida, you have a fairly decent Hispanic population who supports, Republicans a little bit more, and it's kind of a little bit more of their base.
yeah,
So they care more. I also think that, we're not going to see really a change. They're going to do what they're going to do because, when Laura Loomer is sitting out there saying that, 65, we could start now and we could guarantee the alligators 65 million meals, which is the number of Latinos in this country. What is that? That's the base telling you that they don't like anybody. They don't care about anybody. They want basically anybody who is brown and they want to meet a quota. And, let's be honest, they wouldn't care if we accidentally rounded up some American citizens there. They don't.
yeah,
You look at the rhetoric that they're talking about, and it's literally I cannot distinguish it from how people would have like Nazis would have talked about Jews. I can't.
yeah,
They sit there and they act like, isn't it strange that we almost talk about crime is almost synonymous with foreign migrants now?
yeah,
Crime is blamed on them. Everything that's wrong with the country is blamed on them. Your housing crisis, it's a migrant. All these different issues, and it's not.
yeah,
Like, it's never been. And not to say that there aren't issues that arise from, the patterns of immigration and things like that. Of course there is.
right.
But, you know, sitting there and trying to deport people who are honestly just trying to make a living. Like, if we could actually resolve our immigration system, we would be so much stronger as a country because one, I mean, it could be a whole lot less divisive because across the political spectrum, most people are like, yeah, we should have immigrants, but they might say, oh, they should come legally or all these different other qualifiers. But most people are supportive of immigration and realize that it is a benefit for our country.
Yeah,
I think the issue is that when we create it into this fear that you should fear the foreigner, it really does a lot of damage to us because then we're not focused on actual issues to be resolved. Like it's we create the issue into something else than in what it is.
yeah,
I think, going back to kind of the intimidation and things like that, you're not making anything safer by putting troops into the streets, basically. And in fact, we see this now in immigration raids and things like that. But what happens when there's a protest on a college campus or there's a protest in the streets, which, we kind of already saw that as well.
Yeah,
But what happened? I mean, this is going to be a chaotic 4 years. And, there's always times and moments of uprising and upheaval, especially recently in America. And I think how the government responds is always kind of indicative of their overall approach to the citizens as a whole, right?
yeah,
And I imagine what it would be like if those troops were marching in on a college protest and, let's say things get out of hand. Do they kill students? And I mean, I know people think that that's kind of crazy, but it's happened before
yeah,
in this country. And, you don't want to make it extreme, but I think when you see that level of oppression and that level of, you know, mistreatment really of the citizenry, I think it's just a warning in some ways. I mean, I think that sounds kind of depressing, but it's true. Like if I saw that in any other country, I would say, okay, there's something a little wrong with that.
yeah,
And you know, their overall approach and the rhetoric that they pair it with, it's not just their actions. It's what they sit there feeling comfortable to say on Twitter. And some of them are just influencers, but these are influencers that MAGA people, JD Vance and people like that will go and sit with, have a conversation with them, and act like they're the sane and rational ones when they're
right.
sitting here spewing vitriol and just like Klan rhetoric, if we're being honest.
Yeah, it's very odd because one thing that I've noticed is like, these people talk about like all of these Christian values and talking about like Jesus, and I'm like, do you really believe that you're getting into heaven if you are talking about feeding immigrants to alligators? Do you really think that you're getting into heaven if you're sitting in front of a cell where a bunch of immigrants who were trying to change their lives, that were trying to get away from some some kind of persecution, because that's what a majority of these immigrants are doing, is they're seeking asylum from persecution, whether it be religious, whether it be um, uh, color of their skin, whether it be social class. Like these are people that are trying to get away from oppression in some capacity,
Mhm.
persecution from in some capacity, but somehow, they get into the United States and then they're thrown into these cages and like animals, and then are talked like they're talking about like making sure these alligators eat these animals. Like, I mean, do you really think that that's what God wants? Like, if you really, and not only that, you see Kristi Noem, you see Donald Trump, you see Ron DeSantis laughing in front of these cages too. Like, I mean, do you really think that this is what God wants? I just don't.
Have you not met American Jesus?
Yeah.
Like,
Barely I haven't, because I mean there's just no way that you can go and comfortably say like, yeah, this is what Jesus wants. Like I I just, the fact that they are so comfortable with not only like, and not only that, they talk about like all this free speech when the reality is their free speech is just bullying people, making fun of like disabilities or um, gay rights or people of color. Like if you make fun of like religion or Donald Trump, suddenly you're canceled. But if you are making fun of immigrants, Mexicans, Muslims, black people, gays, suddenly like you're this brilliant comedian who needs to be put on a pedestal and protected from cancel culture. It's just like, it's like why I mean, listen, if
yeah,
you were openly mocking, you know, MAGA and Donald Trump and religion too, as well as doing that, okay, you're an edgy comedian, right? Like at the end of the day, like that's what it is. But like the fact that you have an issue with anybody that goes on that side of like, I gotta attack MAGA, I gotta attack. It's just like, what is like, the double standard is just baffling to me. I don't know. It's very concerning to me. And you're right about like all of these immigrants, like they are a net positive to this country. over anything else. Like the reality is, if you listen to Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve, after COVID hit and we had the supply chain disruption, you saw a shortage in labor. Who filled that shortage in labor? Immigrants, legal and illegal. And that is what helped to get us out of this crippling inflation because that's what, I mean, because of the supply chain issue, we had crippling inflation. What happened was people were not wanting to return to work. But thankfully, we had immigrants who were willing to return to work for us because they weren't getting any unemployment benefits. As much as MAGA would love to tell you that they're taking advantage of our system and taking benefits from us, they couldn't qualify for those benefits. So they had to go and work for us and then continue to keep our economy afloat. And now that we're not dealing with the disruptions of COVID anymore, now it's suddenly like, okay, let's just kick them to the curb. Let's move them aside. It's just like it's things like that that's just very frustrating to me and very saddening to me because I'm like, you know, when we needed them the most, we were quiet. But as soon as we don't need them as much anymore, it's like suddenly like now we're becoming isolationist. And not only that, you're right. Like a lot of Hispanics in Texas love to vote Republican. The Canada, on the other hand, like that's why we've already talked about this. That's why I am convinced Donald Trump is racist because Canada is very liberal. Mexico is more on the conservative side. You're trying to overtake Canada over Mexico, like in terms of politics. Give me a break. Anyways, last words before we have to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to kind of finish out what you were saying, like they've always been that for us, though. Like we act like this is new, but immigration is literally the story of America. Like if you go to Ellis Island, you see all your ancestors from all over the world.
Yeah.
That's America. Like get used to it, I guess, is my kind of opinion. It's like this is how we've been for a while, so I don't know what you didn't know. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it as always, Chase. It's good talking to you. We'll be back next week because I guarantee you there will be something to talk about. Hopefully, it's Donald Trump getting arrested or impeached. But who knows? And I'm sure Donald Trump will find some way to create another world war for us. But good talking to you, and I will see you next week, my friend.